Okay, so the last video I did to update you guys on the Subaru STI project with our 2020 Subaru STI Limited. That video didn't have really kind of a dedicated theme or content. It was just an update on the status of the project car. So this video, I want to be a little bit more specific. I'm going to go into a kind of a detailed list of the build, and we'll see how far we get. We can talk about the motor first, since that's the most recent upgrade to the car and obviously pretty essential. So it is a long block assembly from Outfront Motorsports, and I've got my list here. I'm going to go ahead and reference this as we go through. So it is Outfront Motorsports V4 Racer Plus short block. So that is new Subaru OEM case halves that are machined for the V4 closed deck inserts. And it also has pinned mains around the main bearings to help keep the block from distorting under extreme pressure. So that's the block. And then we're using the custom JE Ultra pistons with lateral gas ports, and they're like a ceramic coating on top, and really nice pistons. They've got, I believe, a custom 0.25 or maybe a 0.21 wall thickness wrist pin in there. Pretty heavy duty stuff. We've got the 1/2-inch head studs, obviously, from ARP. We're using Manley tri-beam plus 2mm rods. So that doesn't actually make the stroke any longer. It's still just a 2.5 liter motor. The wrist pin and the piston is also offset a little bit higher, obviously the same distance as the additional length on the rods. And what that does is it changes the rod angle during rotation, and it makes the motor just run a lot smoother. And it actually is quite noticeable versus the OEM motor that was in here. We're using a Cali's billet crank. It's a 79mm crank. So like I said, same stroke. King race bearings. I believe they're a coated race bearing for both the rod and the mains. ARP case bolts. We're using a 1.2mm thick copper ring head gasket, which is the JE Pro Seal. We have a Asian timing kit, competition oil pan, baffle and pickup from Killer B. Have an 11mm oil pump that's set up as a competition oil pump from Outfront Motorsports, so they poured it and flow tested all kinds of stuff. Have just a standard water pump. The cylinder heads, let me scroll back up here, are N25/S20 head castings. So those are the same that would have come on my Type RA motor. They've been fully CNC ported with a race port job, I guess you would call it. So it's their really kind of heavy duty port job. We've got manganese bronze valve guides for intake and exhaust, competition valve seats, of course, brand new shimless buckets. The heads were machined to accept those 1/2-inch head studs, running a BC 280 cam. And then they are GSC dual conical springs, which are pretty awesome. They've got a 94-pound seat pressure. The seat pressure is pretty high, and that's to kind of help fight the amount of boost we're going to be throwing at this thing, so the springs can still close the valve when they need to, even when there's up to 50 psi of pressure behind them. Still running the dual AVCS system. We're running a fluid damper harmonic balancer instead of an OEM balancer, so that'll help the motor run a lot smoother up at higher RPMs, kind of help it stay a little bit more balanced. Of course, this whole rotating assembly was balanced by Outfront Motorsports. We had them service those AVCS cam gears. OEM valve covers, OEM oil cooler. I've got an oil temperature gauge in the car now, along with oil pressure, and even though it's summertime, it's been pretty warm, upper 80s, low 90s, and even sitting in traffic or pulling some pretty steep hills at kind of a sluggish pace, it has stayed fairly cool, right around 220. The highest temperature I saw was 225, and that was under some pretty extreme conditions. So we'll continue to kind of monitor the oil temperature and see if we need to add an aftermarket, larger OEM oil cooler. It has an upgraded timing belt from HKS. We're using Roger Clark Motorsports eccentric idler set, so we can adjust the timing a little bit better, the mechanical timing, because when you machine the block and it's decked after they do the closed deck inserts, you're actually making the block a little bit narrower. So trying to get your factory timing marks perfectly aligned after you've removed a little bit of material on the mating surfaces, even though you kind of account for it with your head gaskets and stuff, it's still not spot on. So these adjustable idler gears actually allow you to compensate for that difference in belt length versus kind of the OEM height of everything. So they were a little tricky to set up. I'd never used them before, but once you got them dialed in, I got the mechanical timing right on the money. So, and then we're running Farah oversized valves. They're a 37 millimeter intake and 33 millimeter exhaust. I think that pretty much covers everything in regards to the long block assembly from them. We're also running the Roger Clark Motorsports high grip belt tensioner, which is a really nice design. It replaces the entire factory assembly there that's above the water pump. It's pretty cool. So this is stuff we've kind of covered before, but Extreme Turbo Systems catback exhaust, it's their Extreme Series exhaust with mufflers. It's very loud. Tempted to put a resonator on it. We'll see. I like the way it sounds, but it's very loud. We're using the ETS rotated kit that's obviously the up pipe, the down pipe, all the little bells and whistles, the intercooler piping, front mount intercooler. It's a 3.5-inch core from ETS. Blow off valve is a tile 50 millimeter blow off valve. I'm running an 11-pound spring in that. The fuel line kit in the engine bay itself, just in the engine bay, so fuel pressure regulator to rails, and the rails themselves, those are all IAG PTFE lines. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't use the PTFE lines again. They're kind of a pain in the ass to work with, but they look really good and they're going to last forever, and they're fine. IAG Competition Series air oil separator, that is also something we'll probably change here in the not too distant future. That's a baffled system, so even though it does technically vent to atmosphere, you still are restricting ventilation of any crankcase pressures, and I want to run a more open crankcase ventilation system, so I'll probably switch from the air oil separator to just a standard catch can that I can vent to atmosphere. We're running dual Walboro 450 pumps. We'll see how it does on the dyno. I think the pumps are going to be the limiting factor in power. We should be able to tickle that upper 900, maybe even lower 1,000 wheel horsepower number, but might have to step the pumps up to a 525, at least for the primary. IAG top feed TGV housings, fuel pressure regulator from Aeromotive to, I don't know, A1000 fuel pressure regulator. Running a 5 millimeter phenolic spacer under the TGVs. Running a Injector Dynamics 2600 cc fuel injector. My feed line is a -8 AN line and a -6 return line. I made those lines from just a basic plumbing kit I got from Radium. It was nice because it came with the filters, the fitting, and some brackets for mounting underneath the Subaru in particular. So it's kind of a nice way to do it. I didn't have to custom make any brackets or anything. All the wiring for the fuel pump, I bought that stuff from Radium, but it's pretty straightforward. It's just a couple of relays. I used the lift switch from the OEM wiring harness to close the first relay. It also closes the second relay, but in series with the lift switch for the fuel pump is a pressure switch too. So you have to have fuel pump command plus adequate boost pressure to engage the second fuel pump. For now, I'm going to run the second pump without the Hobbs switch here in the future. So they're just both on all the time. The fuel pump hanger is just the radium dual pump hanger in tank. Really nice setup. Highly recommend that over trying to modify an OEM hanger to fit 2 pumps or even a larger pump than a 340. Precision turbo, 46 millimeter external wastegate. It's got 15-pound springs in it right now. We're using an AEM iWire IAT hybrid speed density sensor and wiring harness. Wideband O2 with gauge. Again, that's an AEM setup from iWire, so it's kind of plug and play. ETS V2 max flow header. Excellent header. If you're going for big power, you won't find a better header. We're using a precision turbo Gen 2 6870 ball bearing turbocharger and a Process West Street Series intake manifold. So that should kind of cover motor and all the accessories. Drivetrain, we will get some stuff from Drivetrain shop here in the future, probably later this year or early next year. We'll do the heavy duty rear axles is where we'll start, along with a heavy duty carbon fiber drive shaft. And then eventually we'll probably upgrade the front axles as well. Coming up right away, we'll do the Torque Solutions solid engine mounts, transmission mounts, and pitch stop mounts. That's going to give the car a little bit more raw driving feel, a little more connected. It's also going to help. These OEM motor mounts are not going to hold up to hard launches coming out of the hole on the drag strip. So also currently we're running the ACT Mod Twin clutch. Love it. It's excellent clutch. It's the XT pressure plate, but it still has a OEM, maybe even a little bit lighter pedal feel. It's fantastic. Could not recommend it anymore. Those run about $1,800. I know it sounds like a lot, but when you look at another clutch that's capable of holding over 800 foot-pounds of torque for these cars, they're about $3,000. So this was actually a really good deal, and it drives like an OEM clutch. It still has a sprung hub. This one's got organic discs. It's been excellent so far. Got a couple 100 miles on it. It's starting to break in really nice. The wheels are Cosmos Racing. They are an 18x9.5 with a 38 offset. It's the XT206R series wheels in white. Running a Pilot Sport 4S tire, 265, 35, 18, obviously. Excellent tire. They do great as long as it's above about 45 degrees. Under 45, you can start to tell they're a little bit stiff, a little hard. Not the greatest compound below 45 degrees, but not terrible. Now, once you get below freezing, they're definitely pretty glassy feeling on the road. Suspension, we're running Fortunato 500s, just Gen 7 series coilover. They ride great. They're adjustable ride height, adjustable rebound. And the rebound adjustment on them actually does make a really big difference. You can definitely tell. I think there's 24 adjustment levels, everything from mild to wild. So I really think that that's a good entry-level suspension for these cars. I have not done the sway bars yet. The factory sway bars are a pretty good size, but I would like to upgrade to the white line sway bars eventually. Some other stuff we've done, we've had a paint correction and a ceramic coating done. We've got an OEM STI front lip and a spoiler gurney flap from OLM. Eventually, I'd like to get like the S209 or Type RA kind of skeletonized wing for this, but not right now. It's not in the budget, and it's not one of those things that's really going to help the performance of the car. It's more just of the look. So interior, we've got the gauge pods. We've got the gauge cluster down in the cubby. Oil pressure gauge, oil temperature gauge, boost gauge, wideband O2 gauge. Those are all AEM X series. They're all compatible with standalone ECU systems. So in the future, when we do move to a standalone, we'll be able to incorporate all of those sensors along with more. Subaru floor mats, Subaru cargo mat for the trunk. I'm not going to go into all the vibrant fittings, but I will say when you start converting everything over to AN fittings, it can get pretty pricey. Some of these fittings are upwards of $30 a piece. Most of them are $7 to $8, but You need a lot of them. So you can spend $500 to $1,000 just in fittings really quick. Also, the hose isn't cheap. I think 20 feet of hose was $75. So something to keep in mind when you're looking at that. And it was a good bit of research I had to do. I made a list of each component that used a boost or a vacuum line, and then had to research what size threads and thread pitch the fittings were, and then find a part number from Vibrant Fittings to get the right parts. And it actually took me a couple of hours to sit down and make a spreadsheet of all the fittings that I would need. And even that, I missed a couple, like the 1/16 inch NPT to dash 4 flare fitting for the fuel pressure regulator. So there's still some little stuff I missed, even after making a pretty extensive list. All right, I think that about covers it for the car. If anybody's interested, I can include links to some of this stuff. But again, it's been an excellent project, wonderful learning experience, and the car is unparalleled to drive. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm not going to fire it up right now. I didn't even bring the keys out here with me, but there's that beautiful ETS rotated turbo kit with the Precision 6870. Gorgeous Process West Street Series intake manifold. And as you can tell, there isn't really any dress-up stuff in this engine right now. Eventually, I'll get a different cover for the rotating assembly of the power steering pump, alternator, and air conditioner. They make a nice one that kind of covers this whole thing. All the yellow pieces that Subaru highlighted so that you knew where all of your fluids were that you needed to check. I'm going to replace all those caps with some really nice anodized aluminum ones. Probably just go with black, because there's very little red accent. The only thing red in here really is the fuel rails and, you know, your high current electrical covers. So, and again, like my previous video, ignore this wiring mess. This is a temporary thing for running the Hobb switch. I planned on not running a Hobb switch. So this was just kind of a temporary solution because I do need it for the time being. The only other thing in here that I am not thrilled with are the factory fuel lines, the hard lines right here. I have not figured out how to remove those without really tearing the interior of the car apart to get to that. So those are probably going to stay for now. Otherwise, everything turned out really nice. Here are those AN fittings on the boost controller. Here they are on the blow-off valve. And again, they're everywhere. If you look underneath the intake manifold, all 6 ports on there, or actually I think it's 5 ports. All 5 ports are all really nice, vibrant AN fittings. So everything's looking good, I think. Excuse the car is filthy. We've been driving it in the rain. This is going to get pretty dark in here, I think, but here's the SMY gauge pod around the cluster. This is my boost and my wideband O2. And then down here is where I have my oil pressure and oil temperature. So as you can see, my taste is the OEM plus kind of look. I'm not a big fan of the crazy body kits and stuff like that on these. Here's a little gurney flap on the spoiler, just kind of adds a nice little touch to it. But I've always been a fan of the factory STI spoilers. I think they look really tasteful. Then we've got the rain gutters. Again, a nice touch on these cars. They don't stick out, or they don't pop as much on a black car as they do on a different colored car. But here's those Cosmos racing wheels. Again, absolutely filthy right now. And then here's that OEM STI front lip. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I appreciate you tuning into my channel. If you have any questions about why we did certain things with this car, why we chose certain parts, how they work, how we're tuning it, the power levels you can expect, what to do, what not to do, at least in my learning experience with this car. So stay tuned, and again, thanks for tuning in.